Well, hello and welcome to Mags and Tills and Wells. I have a quick update on my 1971 Sportster XLCH. Well, guys, when I got this bike, it was full of grease and oil, and it was all caked inside the engine and all that. So I had to gunk this thing down, and I just power washed it to get all the grease and oil off this engine. So I got the crankcases nice and clean in there now. I don't know if you can see it or not, all the way in the back here, and all the way down here. So it's all nice and clean. And when I got this bike, it was so caked with all this grease and oil, especially on the rear head back here. And I'm not really sure if I have a leak on the rocker box back here, because the rear head was all full of oil, really bad. But the front one, it was dry as a bone over here. But the rear head, it was caked with oil, and I just seen a lot of oil around the rocker box. So if that's the issue, I'm gonna have to pull off the head, because you can't take the rocker box off. If the engine is still in the frame, you can't take the rocker boxes off because there's a bolt that's right underneath the frame, and I think it would be a real bear to try to get that rocker box off while the engine's in the frame. So the easiest way to do this is just to take off the head, and I'm taking this bike apart, detail up the engine anyway, so I gotta take off the carburetor and all the exhaust pipes. And if I take off the head, I gotta undo the oil line right over here, and I have to loosen up both of the push rods really loose, and then just take 4 bolts off the head right there and just pull the whole head and the rocker box off all in one piece, so I can replace the rocker box gasket then. So that's where I'm at with it right now. I just put a 3.3 King tank on this bike just for right now, just to start the bike and to wring the engine out a little bit more. So I got this old 3.3 King tank sitting on the bike right now, and that's going to serve as just my test tank until I can test the engine a little bit more and to see what I have before I start stripping everything down over here. But that's the update on this 1971 rat bike Sportster. But it's not going to be a rat after I get done with it, but it sure looks like a rat now, doesn't it? But that's okay. Okay, that's the update, and we'll get back on this bike pretty soon. In the meantime, I'm working on the original fuel tank and getting it all straightened out so I could paint it and paint the rear fenders and the front fender. And I did the Bondo work a little bit right on the front fender here. It needed it, and I still have to fix the holes right in the fenders on both sides, so I'll be doing that next, because I need to be painting this bike soon, and I got to get it all done before it gets cold outside, and then I can start ripping this bike apart and I'll start getting into the detail of it. But for right now, I really want to check out that rear rocker box and see if I have to take off the rear head while I'm pulling this bike apart. So that's the update. Okay, I just took the spark plugs out and kicked it over about 5 or 6 times, and I want to see if there's any excess fuel and if the plugs were fouled up, but they were bone dry. So, and at this time in the video, I'd like to ask you to subscribe if you haven't already. It would really help out my channel, and I really appreciate it to bring you more content just like this. up a little bit and see if it starts seeping oil out of the rear rocker box here. So I'm gonna let the motor get good and hot and see what happens. Like I said, it hasn't started for about a month at least. So after I primed it in really well, it started on the second kick. It's starting to burn off all that old gunk that I put on there, you know, from the power washing. Starting to burn all that off the engine. Starting to smoke a little bit. That's okay. It's burning nice and clean. I don't see any smoke out of the exhaust pipe. Burning off all that old gunk I put on there. It's got the idle set up way too high on this carburetor. I'm going to bring it down a little bit. cool off a little bit. I'll put the fan on this thing next, and I'll start it up again. But that carburetor really is sticking badly. Once you rev it up and you try to back off on the throttle, it won't back off. So I think that throttle plate is kind of sticky. I'll have to look into that a little bit and see what's going on. But I'm trying to locate any oil leaks on this engine, and I see a little drop of oil coming right down here, so I don't know where it's coming from. I'll have to crawl under there and check it out. But it's smoking like crazy. Whew. Man, that's really smoking. I'm looking at that rear head and that rear rocker box, and I don't see any oil dripping out of it yet, or any seepage coming out of it just yet, but I got to run it some more and give it a good test. Man, it's really smoking. Let it cool down a little bit, and I'll come back out here and start it up again and run another heat cycle through it. See you guys in a little while. Okay, I didn't have a sticky throttle plate after all. What it was is that he didn't have the throttle cable screwed down at the right point right here, and it wasn't pulling back on the throttle all the way. So every time you hit the throttle, it was sticking, and to about 3,000 RPM. It was crazy. So all I had to do is adjust the throttle cable. So when you back off on the throttle all the way, it pushed the throttle plate all the way down against the stop right here, and it would idle all the way down again. So I got a fan on this bike now to keep it cool, and I'm going to start it up again, and I'm going to run it through another heat cycle, and just to see if I have any oil leaks on this bike. after I adjusted the throttle cable, and I had to fine tune the idle through over here. After it warms up, I'm going to fine tune that a little bit further so it settles down at about 1,000 RPM.
And that's where the oil leak is coming from the oil pressure sensor switch right there. So looks like I got a little leak coming from that oil pressure sensor switch. I'll just unscrew this right here, and then I'll put a sealer on the threads and just screw it right back in again, and that will take care of that. But besides that, I don't see any other oil leaks under here. After I ran the bike a while, I see someone marked that left side crankcase with a black magic marker. It says 4602. I don't know why that's on there, but someone did mark it right there. 4602. So this motor had to be out of the frame at one point, I think, and it probably was rebuilt at some point. I don't know, hard to tell, but I think it was. But the engine runs really, really well, so I'm happy with that. And as I ran the engine a while, I was looking at the rear head over here and at the rear rocker box, and it's dry as a bone. It doesn't have any leaks coming from it, at least so far. So I'm happy with that. So what I'm thinking is that the old fuel tank, it leaked right under the fuel tank in this area right here, and I think it leaked for a very long time, and it kept leaking on the head over here. It was dripping on the head, and it would go back into the fins right around into the exhaust pipe over there. And that's why I say, when you get a new bike and you don't know what you got, you know what I mean? You got to clean all the gunk and grease off of it and see if you have any leaks here and there. And you know, when you buy a bike, you just don't ride it. You got to take it home and you got to go through it, like I'm doing right now. Now, I don't know how in the world this guy rode this bike with the throttle at idle at 3,000 RPM. I mean, that's the way to get yourself killed, you know? And it was a simple adjustment just here on the cable throttle over here. But my goodness, you know, you just don't buy a bike and take it out on a joyride. You got to take it home, and you got to go through every little nut, bolt, and screw and make sure everything's tightened down and things are running properly, just so the bike is safe before you ride it. This is a perfect example of that. So I'm not finished with it yet. I'm still wringing it out, and I'm going to run it some more. I don't have any plates for it yet, so I can't take it out on the open road to really wring it out. But so far, you know, I don't see any oil leaks on this thing. As far as any big oil leaks, just that one little leak that I can fix by the oil pressure switch, which is a simple fix right there. That's no big deal. But as far as anywhere else, I don't see any leaks at all since I gunked and power washed this thing. And that's the way you can really look at the bike and, you know, get it to run and get it up to temperature and get some heat cycles going through it, so you know what you got here, so you know what you have on your hands. But I like the way this bike runs. It runs really good, and the spark plugs are burning beautiful. They're nice and dry. They're not full of black soot or anything. And overall, the engine sounds really, really tight. It sounds really good. It looks like a rat, but my goodness, it runs really well. So I'm happy with that. So I'll take it down the block here and there without the plates on it and run through all the gears and everything, and just get a better idea about it. But before I take this bike apart, I just wanted to make sure that if anything really stood out while I got the bike apart, that I could address it, such as the rear head, which I thought had a leak in the rear rocker box, but it seems that it doesn't at all. It all came from the fuel tank with that pinhole leak that must have been dripping on that rear head for a very long time, causing a big mess back there. So I'm so glad that I power washed this thing and got all the grease and oil off of it, so I know where I stand with it. And now I can't wait to pull it apart and start to get into it. I mean, to really get into it. Okay, that's it. That's the update. Take care, guys, and happy motorcycling. You take good care of yourselves.